People are saying the infamous Cruel Claw is the next best cheater in Commander, and that is entirely justified. He deals combat damage to a player, and you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. And then you can cast it for free by simply discarding one card. Fast mana like Simian's Spirit Guide or Rite of Flame can let you cast Cruel Claw on turn 2. On turn 3, with his Menace, he'll be able to connect with the player in almost every single game you play. If you flip into the new Ulamog the Defiler, for instance, the game is essentially over. There isn't a lack of cards you'll enjoy cheating out in the Rakdos color pair, with plenty of options still available on a budget. What I do think people are missing out on is how powerful a commander Cruel Claw can be leading a Dragon's Approach deck. You still get all the same benefit of cheating out dragons if you flip into one when he connects with the player. But you can also discard your Dragon's Approaches to cast whatever non-land card you flip into, getting you closer and closer to cheating those dragons out through the sorcery's ability. You will be seeing the infamous Cruel Claw at a table near you soon, and he will be cheating. But what else would you expect from a weasel? The power of these Bloomburrow legends does not end here, but before we move on, please hit that subscribe button below because there is all sorts of Bloomburrow content coming your way and you won't want to miss any of it. Ygra, Eater of All, first of all looks hella savage. I know not everyone is an art enjoyer, but I certifiably am, and this kitty, with those bunnies scampering away through a field of dandelions no less, is an absolute delight. And if that was the extent of it, I would still want the card, but there also happens to be some truly busted text on this creature. The ward says food, but basically means a creature, since Ygra turns all other creatures into food artifacts. And then, whenever a food is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, the Eater of All gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Given the base 6 power and toughness, so much food being on the table due to its second ability, granting an almost passive strength boost all game through counters, it's totally reasonable to equip this cat with boots and swords and cloaks and call it a day. But the real value, especially for you game action enjoyers, is going full food aristocrats. With any sacrifice outlet on the battlefield, perhaps the newly printed Warren Soul Trader, combined with Experimental Confectioner, you can sacrifice that first food token the Confectioner made to bring back the Cauldron Familiar from the graveyard, draining each opponent 1 life, triggering the Confectioner to make a 1/1 rat. Now you can sacrifice the Familiar with the Soul Trader. You lose a life and make a treasure, again triggering the Confectioner to make a 1/1 rat, because Ygra turns all other creatures into food in addition to their other types. Now you can sacrifice one of the 2 rat food to bring back the Familiar from the graveyard, draining your opponents for 1, triggering the Confectioner to make yet another 1/1 rat. If no opponent can interact with this, you'll be able to get infinity rats, but before then, you'll be able to drain out all your opponent's life totals. Cauldron Familiar going infinite isn't all that new, but Ygra's introduction does offer that new spin. For non-infinite things you can do, Knight of the Sweet's Revenge turns all your actual food tokens into green mana dorks, but with Ygra turns all your other creatures into green mana dorks as well. If you decide to build a deck that goes wide, that 7 mana sacrifice ability can boost your creature's power and toughness to game-ending levels. Because the Eater of Worlds will be the only non-artifact creature on the battlefield, Creeping Corrosion is a pseudo one-sided board wipe that will almost certainly clear the path to end at least one opponent's game. Finally, I think Pest Infestation, especially with its improved affordability, becomes a must-add. You can still tag those artifacts and enchantments, but with Ygra, that now extends to creatures. And the pests on the back end all come into play as food for any number of synergies you can come up with. Baylen the Haymaker has a lot going on, but you know what he doesn't have? Text that says activate only as a sorcery. This rabbit warrior would have been plenty powerful enough a commander with that text line, but I must say, those ears look quite a bit bigger without it. First thing I thought of, because I do have a little bit of the standard format in my brain, was Virtue of Loyalty. This enchantment gives you free reign to tap your creature tokens to add that color of mana, draw that card, or give those counters and trample to Baylen, because they all untap during your end step and even get a +1/+1 counter. Then you can do it all over again. Seedborn Muse has entered the chat. But it isn't just creature tokens you can tap, it's any token. So if you wanted to try out Rabbit Food or Greedy Rabbit Treasures, Baylen works all the same. For what it's worth, I think it would be way more fun and cute to make sure all the tokens you make are furry little critters. There's a good chance I'll talk about the season cycle in a future video, but as a little sneak peek, Season of the Burrow gets you those furry little critters. Up to 5 of them if you choose to allocate all the paws to the first mode. Otherwise, you got removal and recursion baked into the other 2 modes. These saprolings aren't furry, but they are little and cute, created by blowing up a target artifact with artifact mutation. If you're strictly trying to maximize value, Farmer Cotton gets you 2x tokens for that X casting cost. And as an alternate win condition, Halo Fountain can get the job done with ease. In a 3-color deck, the 5 white pip cost to win the game by tapping 15 creatures you control can get pretty difficult. But when you have Baylen, you can tap 10 of your creature tokens to make 5 white mana, tap 5 others for whatever reason, pay to tap the fountain, and bathe in all your angelic glory. Glarb Calamity's Augur is the Sultai Frog commander so many players have been desperately waiting for, and it does not disappoint. Death Touch is great. Looking at the top card in your library is great. Being able to play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library is huge. And that surveillability to fill your graveyard and get another look at the top is also huge. Having fun building Frog Tribal with the 3 most prevalent colors is something I am fully behind, but I do have to mention, the way the text reads seems to allow for alternate casting costs, so long as the mana value is 4 or greater. The new Flare of Malice from MH3 is an example of this. If you have this atop your library, casting it by sacrificing a non-token black creature seems perfectly legal. The same goes for evoking Shriekmaw, or convoke/delving out Hogak Arisen Necropolis. It's also worth a mention that these dual spells have a combined mana cost, so you could pay the 1 to cast Incubation, get that card in hand, have a look at a different card on top of your library, and go about your day. If you're a Bant kind of person rather than a Sultai enjoyer, Helga Skittish Seer is another 3-color frog printed in the set. Before I wrap up with a nasty new monocolored legend, my sleeper pick for commander that far outperforms expectations is Muerra Trash Tactician. He'll make 1 red or green mana on your first main phase because he is a raccoon. But throw a few more in the deck, maybe a Maskwood Nexus, and you may have more mana than you know what to do with. Then you'll gain 3 life when you expend 4, or spend your 4th total mana to cast spells in a turn. Then you can impulsively draw 2 cards until the end of your next turn when you expend 8. I don't know what dumpster Muerra is rummaging through, but there is all sorts of value hidden in there. I think the best part of this creature is that it does not come off as an immediate problem. As it reads, it gives you 1 mana with some conditional upside. So I think it's going to stick around more often than not, and when it gets going, it's probably not even the scariest thing on your battlefield anymore. And because it's just a value engine, you can take the deck in any direction you'd like. You'll get off to a fast start in a classic Gruul Stompy deck. Muerra certainly will help fuel an Exile deck, and we've even got a life gain angle with the Trash Panda. What I'm looking forward to is this spawning a brand new deck composition though. Raccoon Mana Sinks. Last creature is Maha Its Feathers Knight, following in the footsteps of other mono-black commanders that some may say are downright mean. Maha's version plays out by reducing the toughness of your opponent's creatures down to 1. Combined with permanent spells like Knight of Soul's Betrayal or Kervek the Spiteful, your opponents aren't allowed to have creatures anymore. If you're unable to draw into those, there are a number of instants and sorceries that will take care of any pesky creature that fancies itself allowed to live. All the while, Maha is a 6/5 trampling flyer with a ward cost that makes your opponent discard a card. Now, I don't know if it's ethical to put this out in public, but if you mix a sizable sample of discard spells in the deck to empty your opponent's hands, Maha will have free reign in the sky to take out every last player, pluck by pluck. I told you she was mean. If you never want to play against this commander, the only way you'll be saved is by subscribing to the channel right here and right now. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time for some more monkeying around.